All right, so we're going to do a little bit of YouTube drama, I guess you could call it, concerning another creator. And it's not really drama between him and other YouTubers. It's more like drama between him and the entire progressive world. H.A. Goodman, for those of you that don't watch him, is a former. I think he was writing a lot for the Huffington Post, but other publications as well, Salon. And he used to like start. I don't know if he still does, but he used to start every single um, video that he had talking about where you can find his MSNBC appearances and his CNN appearances and his Fox News appearances and RT appearances, whatever it was. And it was it was very amusing because I think that was his tagline for a long time. See where I appear, and this is where it is. But you know what? It got me hooked. I was watching him literally every day for a while. Lately, he's gotten a little. His videos are just a little too long, and that's about. I mean, other than that, I still think he's a pretty good creator. Although it is just him talking to the camera, but once in a while, you like if you're making food in the kitchen or doing something where you really just need the audio. He's about as good as anybody. I see Alicia Clegg is here. H.A. Goodman, just look up his channel. In fact, I have a link to a debate that he did with Jamal Thomas, who's a progressive YouTuber who's not bad. And they were both progressives, and they were both very big Bernie bros who rejected Hillary Clinton. And, rightly so. I mean, if you have, a position that you think is very important, and you don't feel like compromising on it, and the party that jilted your candidate decides, well, we're going to give you wanted A, B, C, and D, and we're going to give you none of that. Well, I mean, I respect the choice of a lot of progressives to vote for somebody else besides Clinton during the election, and she could have, to be honest with you, if she would have done a lot more much earlier to ingratiate herself with the progressives, uh, this probably would have happened a little differently. She might have become president, which I wouldn't have been happy with, but you know you wouldn't see this pathetic pity tour. So essentially, the subject of this video is that during that broadcast, or possibly before it, Goodman officially said that, yeah, he's going to vote for Donald Trump in 2020. For him, it's more important to tear the DNC apart and start the progressive movement from the bottom to the top. And that was basically his rationale for voting for Donald Trump. Now, I'm not a progressive voter. I still wouldn't say, and it's no skin off of my ass. I'm fine. I probably would vote for Donald Trump again as he is right now. And I'm not going to be like H.A. Goodman. I'm not going to commit to voting for him. Now in 2018, because there's still things that could go wrong. It's wrong to tip your hand too early, and on the other hand, it could be that H.A. Goodman still, he's just bullshitting, and he could end up voting for somebody else. Nobody actually. I think that there actually is a way to find out who somebody voted for, but on a conceptual level, you're not supposed to know who somebody else voted for. They're not even. You're actually not supposed to tell who you voted for if you can. And hey, Truth, Justice, Peace. How's it going? I haven't seen you for a while. Welcome back. Welcome back to Alicia again. I don't know if I said that, but look, I don't think if I was in his position, I don't think I would have chosen that. But there is a little rationale to it, and I'll explain in a second. But the reason I wouldn't necessarily, if I was a progressive, which I'm not, vote for Donald Trump just to screw the Democrats, is because the real thing that they need in order to become a successful a successful movement is to really get behind a third party that will cause a lot of pain to the Democrats, possibly supplant the Democrats in several states. And there are movements that could be like that. I actually covered one. I think it was last night going into this morning. the Working Families Party, which they've nominated Cynthia Nixon to be governor of New York. Let's say that Governor Cuomo wins the primary to be the Democratic candidate in New York. Well, it's very possible that Cynthia Nixon will challenge him and maybe even win as the Working Families candidate over there, and that would be a very painful lesson to the Democratic Party that you can put on all the airs of being progressive and lie to people for years and years and think, oh, I'm going to get away with it. Well, apparently not. If it could happen to Andrew Cuomo, it can happen to anybody. And as much as I wouldn't vote for Cynthia Nixon if you paid me, there's a very good reason why some people probably are considering it. And by the way, before Nixon entered the race, if you really were a progressive in New York State, which I don't live in, you could have been voting for the Green Party the whole time. Instead, they're stuck with Andrew Cuomo. They're stuck with him. That's the attitude of mainstream Democrats. We don't care about actually passing ideas, passing laws, or passing budgets that line up with our ideas. All we care about is having our people in place so that we control the levers of power. Well, then that's not actually progressivism by anybody's definition. And there are a couple definitions of progressivism. That's just machine politics. That's the problem with the Democratic Party. So in that sense, I think H.A. Goodman, I think it's not the best choice he's making. And really, if he wants progressives to have an option, he might as well start now supporting movements that do provide an alternative. Last week I talked to Jim Boydston, who is a committed progressive, who's part of the People's Party, that the draft Bernie Party, as they called themselves. And those people, they're going to have to face the music and draft somebody else. And that somebody else could be somebody like Cynthia Nixon, who I don't think she's far left enough for them yet. But I've talked a little about Dennis Kucinich. Dennis Kucinich is running for governor here. He could be, if he fails to win the nomination here in Ohio, he could be a progressive candidate for president in 2020 as a third party guy. And one of the reasons he would be better than Bernie Sanders, and this is a message to H.A. Goodman, he would be a better candidate than Bernie Sanders, is because he is, unlike Bernie Sanders, who for years ran as an independent but was essentially an ally of the Democrats. Dennis Kucinich is a Democrat who has been a thorn in the side of the Democratic establishment his entire career. He's basically called them all frauds. He's taken them to task for signing NAFTA. He really took them to the woodshed over the Iraq War. Said during the 2004 election, they wanted to basically shove him in like a treasure chest and bury him under the sea, because he was making fun of John Kerry for basically being a pro-Iraq war guy. So they already have somebody who he's on positions. He's probably just as progressive / socialist as Bernie Sanders, and he actually has more of a solid footing. Now another difference between Sanders and Dennis Kucinich, if you really want to think about it, is that unlike Sanders, who crumbled to Hillary's machine in 2016, and after he finally withdrew from the race, he did endorse Hillary Clinton. He did campaign for Hillary Clinton. He did take all of the shit that she shoveled at him during the convention and with the DNC, the WikiLeaks revealing all the crap that they did to him, and watching his own supporters getting shouted down at the convention, and some of his supporters getting, having to riot outside of the convention center in Philadelphia. That's Bernie Sanders. I mean, Alicia Clegg, exactly. She says Sanders showed his true colors by crumbling so quickly. What kind of leader does that? I'm absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I don't know about Alicia, but I was never a supporter of Sanders. But aside from all of his policies, that was the defining moment for me. Him basically watching his own supporters getting, basically shouted down and abused at the convention, and he was just letting it happen. Floyd and Pink, hello from New Zealand. Welcome back. Haven't seen you for a few weeks. But look, um, yeah, he has other options besides supporting Donald Trump, which he's entitled to do. You can vote for whoever you want. Again, I would probably say that H.A. Goodman could be all just a game. He could be saying he's going to vote for Donald Trump, and then when he goes into the ballot booth, he ticks off whoever is the Green Party candidate or whatever it is. It doesn't. I mean, you're not required to tell anybody who you're going to vote for. Even if you endorse somebody, that doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to vote for them. And an endorsement basically says, yes, if I was going to suggest to you how to vote, this would be who I would vote for. That's why so you can technically endorse somebody in a state that you don't even live in. So you're not going to vote for that person. But I guess we're talking semantics here. Anyway, so why is this such a significant event? Well, maybe it isn't. First of all, but H.A. Goodman has been at the forefront on the progressive side of people who have doubted the Trump Russia collusion story. He's made video after video documenting issues where he sees that, first of all, that the Democratic Party is lying, that the NSA is lying, that the CIA, FBI, and the intelligence services are lying. He's attacked the media. He's taken a lot of attacks from the media too. And people have been calling him alt right and whatever, and he's just been getting, he's been taking as much flack as he's been giving. So whereas it used to be that he would just start his videos talking about where he's appeared on MSNBC or CNN or wherever, now it's just profanity laced tirades, and it's I mean, for me personally, it's an improvement. But some of them are some pretty good videos, and he'll talk a little. The problem is, he doesn't like to hear it. It is a little bit of clickbait, because then he'll say, oh, Hillary Clinton's going to get indicted. Oh, Robert Mueller is going to get indicted for for lying to the FBI or something. Well, so far, I guess up until now, it hasn't yielded much. That there could be some indictments coming for Jim Comey or something. Did I say Robert Mueller earlier? I think I meant Jim Comey. There could be an indictment against Andy McCabe, but H.A. Goodman, by putting those in the titles of his videos, they're not really building up his credibility, and it's a shame, because I've read his books, which are they're pretty good for ebooks. He's not. I wouldn't say that he's the most polished writer, but he does the job. And he's fighting against he's basically swimming against the tide in both progressivism and in the liberal left, the centrist Democrats. And by virtue of this fact that he both doubts Russia, and now he's come out and said openly that it's complete bullshit, and that he is supporting Donald Trump. He's put himself out there even more. He's already been kind of a scourge of TYT and Cenk Uygur and Jordan Sheraton and some of the other, the acceptable, the so-called progressive opposition on the left, the Howard Dean type people that have been, they've been claiming that they're going to reform the Democratic Party. They haven't reformed anything, H.A. Goodman is at the forefront of that group, and the other people would probably be some people on RT and Tim Black to a certain extent, and Jamal Thomas. Floyd and Pink says H.A. switching to the right was a matter of time, in my opinion. Technically, he doesn't think that he's switching to the right, which is kind of funny, but he's only doing it out of spite for the Democratic Party. Other than that, I would say he remains, most of his points of view, and he says most of his points of view are the same as they've ever been. But look, he's been fighting a lone battle at some points to try and redeem his what he called progressivism in the past. The Bernie Sanders movement and everything, and they haven't gotten any support from Sanders himself. So all he can do is basically make video after video after video, and then eventually I think he had enough. The other thing is that TYT, and the progressive movement are themselves falling apart. There's all this stuff. Everybody thinks there's going to be a blue wave or whatever. Okay, maybe there could be. I'm not discounting it. I for one am not making predictions yet, and it's very difficult for me to even try to make predictions. Until I really see how the landscape is going, how primaries turn out in certain states. I did, by the way, predict Wisconsin and Michigan in the 2016 election. I also made a mistake of predicting a number of states would fall to Trump that didn't fall to Trump. And I'm willing to say that I get predictions wrong too. And sometimes I'm just sometimes I just get it wrong. And I do admit it. A lot of the people in the media, they make excuses. They make up huge international conspiracies and try to make it sound like a bunch of trolls convinced Bernie voters to vote against Clinton or vote for Trump or whatever. And in a certain sense, one of the reasons that Goodman's switch to Trump does make sense is that if he does vote for Trump in 2020, and there is a significant bump in Trump voting in California where he lives, that will be a signal to the Democrats that it's really they have to just can it already. They have to shut up and move on. If there's a major shift in voting from the Democratic candidate to Donald Trump, it would be a major defeat for them. Fuzzy 64. Geez, who the hell is this guy? He just comes in and leaves. So the next issue is, of course, I mean, how people have reacted to it. And some people, they're saying, oh, you never were a progressive, you never supported Bernie Sanders. That's so false. If you've been watching his channel as long as I have, he really was for a very long time. He was just it was insufferable. He just wouldn't shut up about Bernie Sanders. And he is basically the symbol of all the people who have been alienated by the left. And what alienates people from the left? It is the march of our lives, March for Our Lives. It is the women's march. Every week they have a different cause that they pretend to care about, where they actually don't accomplish anything, but they go out in costumes with signs and act like they have time to care about other people, but they don't, and they don't accomplish anything. So instead of actually getting to the bottom of what happened in 2016 within the Democratic Party and reforming the party from within, that's what the official progressive groups have engaged in, and it's been a total failure. Their base actually begins to shrink because they're turning on each other. There's a whole phrase, the left eats their own. Well, I mean, there's no better example than what's been happening right now with the Women's March. Now, I've been trying to accelerate it using the FARC feminism videos, and I think some people have started to watch it and really, but it's not like a significant amount of people, so I'm not going to take any credit for it. But the fact is that they don't need the FARC feminism to fall apart anymore. If you look at what's been happening, they're basically the Women's March is fighting with the ADL because the ADL is being carted out by Starbucks as one of their advisors for sensitivity training after the whole Philadelphia incident or whatever you want to call it. And for the Women's March, the ADL just isn't. They're not dumb enough, and they've criticized them too many times for that to be acceptable. So they attack the ADL for being too too anti-black and brown people to give sensitivity training to Starbucks, which is first of all, the whole scandal itself was, and I don't know if I even commented on it last week. The only thing I did, I think, was send a couple memes to some friends, try to get them to recreate the Hotep Jesus video where he goes and gets free coffee. But the thing is that they are fighting each other over who has the right to scold Starbucks over how racist they are. That's what the ADL and the Women's March, who are both anti-Trump, quote unquote, progressive organizations, are doing right now. And then you see the reactions to H.A. Goodman, And you have people. This person put a put this post that said, "It's no use trying to reason with Trump supporters. They don't know what a horrible mistake they've made. Though at some point they may begin to perceive the mess they've created behind them. They'll blame the familiar scapegoats: Obama, then Hillary, then CNN, and finally all the liberals. But they'll never sufficiently overcome the discomfort of their thrashing cognitive dissonance to comprehend that the enemy of America is them." So that's really the way that they look at um, that they look at Trump supporters. Um, and then the same guy puts a meme that says, "I could shit a better president." And somebody said, "You tried. Hillary got flushed." And these Hillary people, they continue to just troll and try to guilt people back into the Hillary camp, but it's not going to work because the look, I don't care what you can hate Trump all you want. The fact is that it's not just the fact that that Clinton lost, but she's a two-time loser. She got destroyed by Barack Obama in 2008. Just you know, he cleaned her clock in those primaries. I wasn't as politically active then and I'm not in a certain way, I'm not politically active now, but except for sharing videos and content. But I'm not involved in a new organization. But I remember watching the primary debates, and Hillary Clinton just looked stiff. She looked entitled. She looked like she was expecting people to vote for her. And then people voted for Obama, and the states just started to stack up, and she lost. And then in 26, she mailed it in during her years as Secretary of State in many ways. I mean, she does say that she worked very hard and she flew all over the world, but where are the accomplishments? Flying all over the world isn't an accomplishment. Okay, the Asian pivot was like her greatest. Wow, the Asian pivot, that was the great accomplishment of Hillary Clinton's term as Secretary of State. It didn't really work because in the end, Obama did get involved further in the Middle East. He did fail to really tackle our poor relations with Latin America. And they just I mean, she was succeeded by John Kerry, who was an awful Secretary of State too. Then she wants to run for president again. She can barely defeat a token opposition in Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders, I don't believe, was really trying he wasn't really trying to defeat Hillary Clinton and win the nomination, but because he eventually realized that people just they would rather have if let's say a plate of cat vomit had run against Hillary Clinton, there would have been a lot of people would say the vomit, it's not awful when you look at Hillary Clinton. So a lot of these Clinton trolls, they continue to pretend like everybody else made a mistake but them, but they really fucked up by supporting her for president in 2016. Let's look at a couple comments. Yeah, there's not much here. So, H.A. Goodman, I think I posted this live stream on this thread. But, somebody says, H.A. Goodman, I definitely won't vote for Trump in 2020. Voting for him is not a solution. The problem, H.A., is Democrats, including Bernie Sanders, are elitists because they won't interact with ordinary people like us. That is why I started the group Politico Today, which you are, well, so like-minded people like us can discuss and work on a solution. I wish you would post more in my group so you and I can have direct conversation. Well, I mean, it's hard enough for me to get in touch with him. And God knows I've been trying to send him the Mattis file because I thought he would find it interesting. By the way, if you follow H.A. Goodman author on Twitter, send him the Mattis file because I'm trying to get him to cover it. But that's just if you want to do me a favor. Okay, you don't have to, but I'd really be happy if you did. Let me see here. I'm just gonna type it in at H.A. Goodman author. That's his Twitter handle, and the link that you sent to him is this one. Oh crap. No. Yeah, send him this. I mean, why not? I mean, you're here anyway, guys. I mean, while you're watching, you can just send it to his Twitter and have him read it and tell him, this guy, he has a perfect story for you to cover, story that you would like. But yeah, he is coming over to Trump, and you have all these people who are living in fantasy land. This other guy says Trump may not run again. He's not in good shape and he's getting old. I don't think he ever actually expected to win in the first place. And neither did the deep state or Hillary. There's some pseudo truth to your argument about HRC versus Trump. But if you want to show your displeasure with the Democrats, you could vote green, as Collins said. Why do you consider Sanders an honorable man? He is a giant part of the problem. I can't, with any conscience, vote for a pro-war, pro-Zionist politician from either of the major parties. And Trump hasn't exactly sealed the deal with North Korea yet. I stopped listening to you, AJ, long ago when you kept posting about how inevitable it was that Hillary would end up being indicted and prosecuted. I really can't take you seriously. Well, I mean, this guy is going over. He's saying that Trump is obese. He's not obese. He is overweight, but he's very tall, and I mean, anybody would call Trump obese that hasn't been around obese people. I mean, in a certain way, I probably qualify as obese compared to Trump, by metrics. I'm being honest. It's and that's why I go to the gym a lot more than I used to. And then you have people who are, they're saying, I totally get it. Still not sure what I will do yet, but super grateful to you for telling a constant stream of unwavering truths so starkly in contrast with the running joke of mainstream media that one can't help but see the fraudulent reality they're plagued with if people pay even just a little attention. So, there's a lot of replies here. Some people are telling him to vote for Tulsi Gabbard. That would actually be, for him, it would be a good idea. I don't think I would vote for her based on her economic policies, but she wouldn't be a horrible choice. Then there's who's the other person? This person's posting, first we take Manhattan, then we take Berlin. The only way to take down the GOP forever is to first take down Democrats. If you cannot see what the real problem is, then step aside and watch. We have to endure a bit more pain. So, Bernie Sanders was, hey, Eric, thanks for tuning in. Piper Report, I like HA, but can't stand his clickbait type titles. Every other video is something like breaking Hillary to be indicted. Exactly. Piper Report knows what I'm talking about. I mean, look, I like HA Goodman, but at a certain point, it's just too much. I mean, come on. He has to really, he has to change something. But this you could call a change. This you could call a change. How does your BMI affect how well you govern? Well, I mean, that's a good point too. By the way, who? No, I was reading your comment, Piper. I was reading your comment. In any case, yeah. If anybody wants to know who was the last president who was actually in danger of obesity, it was actually it was Bill Clinton. He was made fun of as a fat boy when he was running for president. So there's the people who make fun of Trump for his weight. Well, first of all, he's elderly. He's elderly. He's over 70 years old. He's not exactly the type of person who is able to exercise. And there's the fast food thing. But when they came out with the whole he came out with the whole what was it, the medical report, and everybody was asking the guy like 50 questions or whatever, and suddenly people were acting like it was an episode of what's that show, like ER, like they had to basically quiz George Clooney or something from ER. Well, look, the guy gave you the answers. Trump is not deathly ill like people think, and these are the same people. Remember, they're the same people who were complaining when it was made fun of, that Hillary Clinton fainted or whatever. But by the way, Bernie Sanders too. I mean, a lot of the Clinton Hillbots. They were making fun of the fact that he's super old and that he couldn't last as president. Well, he's in better health than Hillary Clinton, and the Democrats. Just so you know, they're trying to renominate Dianne Feinstein as senator from California, and she's like 82 years old, and she's not in great shape. And there's what's another how many examples do you need of the Democrats? When it comes to somebody who's opposing Hillary Clinton, they're saying, oh, he's too old and out of shape and he's going to die, when it's Trump or Sanders. Well, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who falls asleep during speeches, oh, is that the picture of health and good living and vitality? But where's the? I'll bring up the photo. Ruth Ruth Bader Ginsburg. This is during a speech. I think that, yeah, this was during the State of the Union. In fact, uh, it might have been. I think it might have even been when President Obama was president. Yeah, this has nothing to do with Trump, by the way. This was in 2015. She's like nodding off, and you see all these. This is John Roberts, I think, is the and the other bald vultures that sit on the Supreme Court. Um, yeah, these are the people. They're saying, oh, Trump's too unhealthy. He can't last another term as president or whatever. Meanwhile, these people, they know Ruth Bader Ginsburg is on the edge of basically, falling onto like a gurney and getting rolled out into the meat wagon. God forbid. But I'm just kidding. I could care less either way. But it's just the utter lack of standards and it's just so it's clearly partisan. There's no principle to it at all. When Donald Trump does something wrong, I try to talk about it. I try to talk, during the whole run up to this strike in Syria, for example. um Whenever he's doing something that harms conservation efforts, you know, the response to Puerto Rico, I don't think was great. But look, there people have to really get a grip. Okay, and H.A. Goodman's right about something. I don't know if he's right um about his decision to vote for Donald Trump, because that could actually undermine his credibility as a person who might one day want to affect opinions on the left. If they know, oh, you voted for Donald Trump, well, his opinion is completely shot. He might actually have to, give up the ghost and become a complete conservative. He might never recover from this in terms of that. And I think he knows the price he's paying. Right, McCain, how the fuck is he alive? I mean, yeah, that's another one. They want every couple weeks they decide. They have to consider: do we want McCain in the Senate? These are the Democrats and the media. They have to come to a phone conference, a conference call over whether they want McCain in the Senate, because on the one hand he hates Donald Trump, and on the other hand he often is a deciding vote in favor of certain conservative legislation, except for Obamacare, which he let keep going. But yeah, Mr. Wazzo, I told you I think that they eat babies. I think Mr. Wazzo, I encountered you from a GAB or something. So welcome. I didn't know you watched this channel. Eric says Democrats and the DNC are a huge problem. Yeah, I mean, look. If you're a progressive, I understand it's a horrible time to be one. And what H.A. Goodman is doing by saying, "Oh, I'm going to vote for Donald Trump," I don't think that every progressive would see it. In fact, it's provable from his thread, both on Twitter and on Facebook, that yeah, most people are calling him a son of a bitch, and you're stabbed us in the back or whatever. But the reality is that he was stabbed in the back, so it's turnabout is fair play. So he's going and he's stabbing them in the back as far as they can go. Chris Kroll says, "What would JFK be today?" No, I don't know what the hell. By the way, JFK, the earlier stream that I did, which was about a half hour long, JFK, for those of you that don't know, I was talking about first ladies and whatever, and Barbara Bush. He was a horrible husband, and yet people think of him as this great president and such dignity and grace, because Jackie Kennedy was his first lady, and she played the role of first lady fabulously. And people still think of Jackie Kennedy as the iconic first lady, right? Even though, John Kennedy was a horrible husband, cheated on her all the time, was addicted to, I think he was addicted to painkillers too, which, he was ill. So um, it's not like everything was his fault, but he cheated on her for years, shared Marilyn Monroe with his brother, Bobby. Bobby Kennedy also cheated on his wife, Ethel. The Kennedy family, people talk about them with such idealized standards. I think, by the way, John F. Kennedy never was intended to be president. They wanted his older brother, who died in World War II, to be president, Joe Kennedy Jr. He had Addison's disease. That's what it was. But yeah, John F. Kennedy probably would have been. He wouldn't have been able to fit in the Democratic Party of today. I mean, I think everybody in the chat knows that. He would have probably been, somewhere where Mitt Romney is. As different as they are in terms of lifestyle. Mitt Romney is a guy who basically, if he wants to live a little, he has lemonade with sugar. Day to day, he takes the unsweetened. But if he wants to really like live on the edge, he adds, he'll wait till Anne's gone out to the garden to chase away the rabbits, and he'll add like a little sweet and low, and yeah, maybe she hasn't seen it. But otherwise, yeah, policy wise, Mitt Romney and JFK probably pretty similar. And Mitt Romney, by the way, also is going to have to run in a primary in Utah. He failed to win the default endorsement in the convention. So yeah, he might not be the next senator from Utah, and that would be fantastic in my opinion. I'd be glad if Mitt Romney didn't get elected. What was the other thing I was going to say? Yeah, another thing I forgot from the other video. I'm sorry if I'm crowding it into the HA video, and I might do another podcast later tonight. But the other first ladies that we were talking about, Barbara Bush dying, and what's the dignified position of first lady. You can be a first lady and have like an important cause that you support. Betty Ford, for example, was against addiction. Rosalind Carter was an evangelical. Nancy Reagan was for kids not screwing in the broom closet at high school or something. Just say no to drugs and whatever. I'm Nancy Reagan or whatever. But if you become such a distraction that you overshadow the actual person who was elected to be president, and it's the same thing. They would have. It's the same thing. Let's say if it was a man who was married to the president, if it was Bill Clinton who was married to Hillary Clinton today, and he was such a distraction, her presidency would be a disaster. And it probably would be a disaster anyway if he was dead or if they'd been divorced. She just doesn't possess the actual mental capacity to function without all these people managing her, and that includes Bill Clinton to a certain extent. They're codependent. The two of them, this is coming from somebody who's read over 20 books about Bill and Hillary Clinton. That's me. I have this library, and I'm still reading more books about them. I'll probably keep reading books about them until that people stop writing books about them. But the other first ladies that came after Jackie Kennedy, they were basically of the same mold. There was Lady Bird Johnson, by the way. People criticize Melania Trump for putting up with her husband's boorish behavior. Lady Bird Johnson, I remember I was reading this book about the Secret Service. Lady Bird Johnson had to put up with a president who would basically, if somebody pissed him off, he'd like pull his pants down and show him his wiener and stuff like that. Like literally, he's a guy who pissed on a Secret Service agent one time when he was, when he was in the Rose Garden. That's what Lady Bird Johnson had to deal with us. And Lady Bird Johnson was like the nicest old lady from Texas, from like the hill country or something. She never had. She never had like anything against her, and when Johnson retired and then he died, she never relinquished her Secret Service detail. That's one of the things that I remember was one of the few things that she could be criticized for, because they'd basically become her caregivers and the only people who would ever visit her, because she was just a lonely old nice lady from Texas. So that was, the type of first lady that there was up in, between Eleanor Roosevelt and Hillary Clinton. Most of them were very private people who didn't really go out to the media and get involved. Hillary Clinton broke the mold, and she was and it's unfortunate for her husband that she did it in the way that she did. Hypothetically, she could have done it in a positive way, and she didn't. And when the first woman president gets into office, they'll probably have to deal with, the type of crap that, Hillary Clinton dealt with from Bill. If you have a husband who is just a complete piece of shit like Bill Clinton, it's going to be very tough to be president. Now, Sarah Palin's husband was, she was going to be vice president. Well, most people don't really care what Todd Palin does. The guy's virtually invisible. That's the best that she can do. So that's about it. I'm glad you guys stuck around and enjoyed as much as you could my discourse on H.A. Goodman. Please send him the Mattis file. You can find it once again. Here's the link to the Mattis file, and this is his Twitter. And just tell him, H.A. Goodman, please read this. It's good information that you would really, really like. Really, really, really like. A lot. Good night.